Hi, we're here with Brian Patrick Stoyle, and just wanted to touch base and see how he's doing and get some more information about his involvement with the Northridge and Star Wars Night. So, Brian, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I joined the Northridge in 2003, just shy of their 1 year anniversary as a group. So I'm not a founding member, but I've been around for a while. I was looking for some local Star Wars fans. I had finished my first year of college. I was definitely feeling some postpartum blues from all my friends who had gone home for the summer. And I wanted to meet some more people around the Buffalo community who loved Star Wars as much as I did. And so a few Google searches led me to the forum that the group was using at the time. And I met up with the Northridge that way. And we used to meet in the Eastern Hills Mall in their food court before they, remodeled everything. So that tells you how old this goes back. But yeah, you know, it's kind of funny looking back now, just random 19-year-old meeting people on the internet because of Star Wars. But it was just really fun, and it turned into a really great group of people. And so I have been involved in some form or another with the group ever since then, and it's been a wonderful ride.
Tell me about your love of Star Wars. Where did that come from? How did it start?
Yeah, I got into Star Wars because of my brother and my cousin. I was actually, strangely, a Star Trek fan before a Star Wars fan. Yeah, I got into Star Trek when I was 9. Star Wars missed me when I was a kid. Just it was that time in the 90s when there wasn't a whole lot happening yet. So I didn't find Star Wars until my brother and my cousin got into it when they re-released the trilogy on VHS tape back in the mid 90s. And that's when all that slew of marketing came out right before the prequels. You had the new line of action figures, you had Shadows of the Empire, you had all the video games and the comics. And my brother and cousin got into that. And then I saw what they were looking at. And then I fell in love very quickly. And that just took hold and has yet to let go for my love and affection for Star Wars. And it's been interesting over the years, like how that fandom has manifested differently in phases. Like when I was a kid, it was all about the action figures and the toys and all that. And probably like a year or two in, it came into like customizing the action figures, because back then they didn't have a toy for every single character. So it was fun to like buy Luke as an X-Wing pilot, repaint his helmet, and then, oh, you have Biggs, or you have Dash Rendar and his snow speeder gear from the video game, or little things like that to modify the toys. And I fell very hard into the novels and the comics. I was an avid reader, especially at that age, and it was really lovely having more material after the movie stopped to see where that story went at the time. So that was always a big factor of it all. And then through Northridge, I got into cosplay, or just costuming as it was referred to back in the day. It was something that I never thought I would do. And it actually was another group member who said, well, you've got long, shaggy, blonde hair. Why don't you just get a karate gi and be Luke? And that has started over half a dozen and counting costumes in the Star Wars universe, and many others around there.
Do you costume as any other characters, or is Luke your main character that you portray?
Luke's been my main. He's always been my favorite character. So I've always felt that connection more than anyone else. I have made a few other costumes over the years because for the group aesthetic that we have, it's beneficial to have some kind of generic character, because there are only so many face characters to go around, and the size of the Northridge and our other costuming clubs that our members are part of are so tremendously large, and they keep growing. So you can't always expect to be given the privilege of being those face characters every single time.
So tell me about Star Wars Night. Unfortunately, due to the recent pandemic, Star Wars Night of 2020 has been postponed. We do not have a rescheduled date yet. However, we're just waiting to hear a word from the Bisons in minor league baseball. But tell me about your involvement with Star Wars Night and how long you've been participating in that event.
Sure. Star Wars Night started out like every other event that we do. We you know, as you know, we just mainly do costumed appearances, adding atmosphere to live events, which has been lovely for posing for photos, interacting with the fans, interacting with the kids. And for the first year or two of Star Wars Night, that is pretty much all that we did. And then the lightsaber demonstrations started happening, which I will admit I was not involved with at first. A
Oh,
few of our other members, particularly Lisa and Marty, really wanted to get into lightsaber dueling at a time when it wasn't nearly as popular as it is now.
mhm.
So they kind of led that spark. And during the second Bisons Star Wars Night, which was 2009, the team allowed Lisa and one other member to duel and give a little demonstration in between innings, and a slightly longer duel recreating Anakin and Obi-Wan's duel from Revenge of the Sith. All the parts that you can do without CGI and wire work and what have you, but the choreography of the actual fight recreated on the field after the game, and it was a big hit. And the minute we got back down to the dressing room after that, you know, we all went out and watched, even if, you know, the majority of us were not participating. We were all kind of in the dugouts watching our two friends do this thing. And as soon as we all got to the dressing room, our contact Anthony was at the dressing room saying, next year, you guys get 15 minutes. You can do whatever you want. And that was the start of it. And we met as a group probably around December or so, maybe a little sooner of that year, to plan the next year, which would have been 2010's Star Wars Night. So the third annual Star Wars Night.
Okay.
And I was out of college at that time. I had majored in theater. I had taken a couple of stage combat classes. And in high school was a bit of a pro wrestling fan. So I just kind of saw aspects of this live show that would work really well for that kind of arena show that the Bisons arena tends to allow. And I just kind of had that visual in my head of that kind of arena show, not unlike what you would see at, you know, other stadium shows or something at, you know, like a Six Flags or another theme park attraction ride.
Sure.
So that was kind of the template going off, and we met as a group, discussed what we wanted to do, and we decided that we were going to recreate more duels from pretty much every movie. And we put together a show that had a very loose framework that allowed us to show off, at the time, all 6 movies. Although we didn't do Empire Strikes Back, but we did most every other duel that was prominently featured in the original 6 movies.
Mm-hmm.
And then we created this one like big battle at the end that just had everybody fighting, like all the Jedi on one side, all the Sith on another side, and they run at each other and just go to town. And the audience ate it up. That show almost did not happen because of rain, but we got through it. And then the Bisons just saw that they had something really special. We saw that we were able to pull off something incredible with the few resources that we had at the time. And it's only grown from there. I mean, the very next year, the Bisons put in their video screen. So they wanted to show that off a little bit as opposed to just doing a live show. So the idea of doing these little video skits to kind of, you know, tell a little story before the battle came from Anthony and the Bisons. And so we wrote a script to accommodate that, and it just took off from there. And it's been happening every year until coronavirus stopped us this year.
It's been a great event. It's a favorite event for a lot of people, including the community. It was voted the #1 summer event by Buffalo's Best Magazine a couple of summers ago. And it's been a real disappointment that we've had to postpone it. But, you know, it'll be back and we'll be able to participate in it. And so the event itself raises money for charity. Can you tell me a little bit about that and just kind of go into the charity aspect of the event and other activities that the group is involved in?
Sure. I mean, the nice thing about the Northridge is that we're using our nerd powers for good, as I like to say. We always are willing to put that effort of going to an event, getting to a place on our own dime, putting on costumes that we bought with our own money to, you know, add to these events that are taking place or, you know, actively partake in the creation of for a charitable purpose. And I've always really appreciated that for the majority of our time as a group, we have raised money for Compass House. I found that group when I was at UB, and I fell in love with the mission of it, keeping kids safe from bad home situations, keeping them off the street, keeping them away from drugs, finding a place to, you know, keep them safe, keep them somewhat active and disciplined, depending on the programming that they offer at the times, and just having a haven in the city. I think that's a marvelous, marvelous purpose that the city is benefiting from with this group. And I was so happy to hear that other members of the Northridge knew about Compass House and chose that as their charity when I joined. And we have been doing stuff for them on and off ever since. Obviously, we're not looking down at any other charities. I know when Bisons Star Wars Night was initially starting, we raised money for American Heart Association. We've raised money for other causes that are near and dear to other members' hearts, which is always fantastic. But I really like that we do a lot for Compass House. And I really love that as the Bison Star Wars Night has grown, that the amount that we've been able to donate to Compass House every year has grown significantly as well, because the audience keeps growing. So that's been very lovely. And I think that it's a shame that we're not able to raise that money for them in the same way this year because of that event. But I love that our group is willing to keep doing something else, even in the light of this crazy time, that we're still going to find a way to raise some money and use our love of Star Wars for a charitable purpose. You know, we're not out there exclusively for Instagram likes or to get some kind of sponsorship deals. And I'm not knocking that, you know, as many cosplayers tend to do that as their living. That's a perfectly fine and valid way of making your money. But that's not what we do. We all have jobs elsewhere. We all have, you know, another life outside of Star Wars. But as one of our other members puts it, there's something about this saga that speaks to us and brings us together. And we have a group of people that would not be friends outside of this shared experience of Star Wars. And that's what's kind of magical about it. Like, you know, you have these families that have grown up together that maybe would never have met. You have people from all different walks of life, people from all different areas of the Buffalo region who never would have seen each other or given each other the time of day outside of, like, you know, passing in the crowd. But because we all happen to like the same movie franchise, we're basically a family. And I love that about our group. And I love that we are willing to put that effort forward to do good for our community, especially in a time when a lot of us are forced to stay home or not go and do anything. So I really appreciate that aspect of who we are as a group.
All right, Bryan. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time and for sharing your insight and feelings about Star Wars Night, Compass House, and the Northridge. And just wishing you to be safe in these crazy times and happy and healthy. And may the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you, Anna. Thank you.
You're welcome.